Let's say it's the 90s, and you want to make a movie, but you don't know what to make it about. What do? Well, if you're Neil Marshall, you go to a pub, get drunk with some friends, and start brainstorming.
It is about a bunch of British squaddies out on exercise in Scotland when they get attacked by a pack of werewolves, and they take refuge in a farmhouse, only to find out that the farmhouse belongs to the werewolves and the werewolves want in.
Alright, so it's werewolves versus soldiers. Let's call it dog soldiers. Okay. Now you got a great idea. And a script. But no money. And when you try to convince a studio to give you some, they just say no. Your idea's too ambitious. Now what do? Well, being Neil Marshall, you just keep writing, improving your script.
Again and again and again, and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting.
1 draft, 2 drafts, 3 drafts, 12 drafts.
I think we ended up filming something like the 12th draft. It was worth waiting, and because the 12th draft is way better than the first draft.
And now that you finally have the money to make the movie, you're 6 years older. But it doesn't matter, because you never thought it wouldn't get made. It just took a little while. So now you got your chance. Just don't mess it up. Everyone loves monsters. From cave crawlers to giant insects to aliens to, of course, werewolves.
Fetch!
And it's easy to fall so in love with these fantastical elements that you neglect the parts that make them important in the first place. The characters. Not Marshall though. You see, Dog Soldiers doesn't simply match military men against werewolves, it puts them first.
I'm making a soldier movie with werewolves. I'm not making a werewolf movie with soldiers.
So even with a limited budget, you don't just try to maximize your monsters, you think about who's going to portray your characters, how they'll come across, and how they'll affect the other elements in the film. You make sure they can sell the characters' biggest moments, their anger, their sincerity, their betrayal.
They were my men!
I wanted to get the best actors because I wanted the soldiers to be as authentic as possible. And if they became real, then the fantastic element of the werewolves becomes more real because of it. We make that foundation of reality and like the grittiness and the drama, and then add the fantasy level on top of it, so you can't sort of shatter it so easily. If the soldiers aren't real, then you've got nothing to build on.
Trapped in an old house in the woods, one owned by the werewolves themselves, you really feel the weight of the characters' dire situation, the growing desperation as their enemies inch closer to getting inside. And in trying to make the characters stand apart in such a wild premise, you may try to meticulously plan everything out. But what do if you've already storyboarded the entire movie? What the scenes are, where everybody's supposed to go, how the camera is positioned, only for the actors to do something else entirely. Well, you do what Neil Marshall did. You scrap it. Despite having already put in hours and hours of his own work, Marshall decided to show flexibility in his approach, scrapping his plans once he actually got on set and started talking with the actors, who wanted to do things how they naturally came to them rather than try to fit within the box he had already defined. You see, Marshall wanted his main characters to feel like a close group of real people, a response to what he considers an accurate representation of British soldiers in years past.
I was really annoyed by 28 Days Later, which, amazing film, but like the soldiers had all turned into kind of psychopathic rapists in a matter of a month. I thought that was not entirely authentic. You know, I want to be more authentic about who these guys are.
And that's how we get scenes like this.
The thing that really freaked us out that day was when Left Hand Charlie found a bit of Eddie with a tattoo on. I mean, everything else was burnt to a crisp, covered in claret, all mussed up, pulped up. Not this bit. This bit was perfect.
And this.
You're behind me, aren't you?
And Neil Marshall's favorite scene to work on.
Sausages!
Making one of his characters not simply feel drunk, but really be drunk.
Hit me!
Or pretty close to it.
He approached me beforehand and said, look, would it be okay if I just had a couple of drinks just to loosen up a little bit for the scene? So I said, yeah, go for it. You know, I trusted him fully at this point. So he had I don't know what he drank, but he had a little bit to drink. So he was tipsy when he did the scene. But it enabled him to just be authentic, you know, because there's nothing worse than a really bad fake drunk. And then he kind of improvised lines like sausages, which has become this immortal line. he improvised that, and I was like, oh, that's just too good. I'm going to keep that in.
And these little moments don't just make the heroes more effective, but the villains as well, giving more reason to hate them when they turn on the characters you've come to like. Which brings us to this guy.
Captain Ryan, Special Ops.
Or you can just refer to him as Butthole for short. I mean, what else would you call someone who lures an unsuspecting squad of soldiers into werewolf territory on the night of a full moon?
He's arrogant and selfish and cruel.
You might recognize him as the compassionate Sir Davos Seaworth from Game of Thrones, but here, he's the complete opposite.
I mean, he's a loveless, empty, humanless character. It's fabulous.
Oh, and unlike the main character,
Just will not kill that dog for no reason.
he kills dogs.
I need men of action.
No!
He works in direct contrast to the film's protagonists, holding more responsibility for the situation than the werewolves do. When others connect, he divides. When they feel hope, he shows apathy. When they work together, he sells them out.
I suppose we were at different sides of the same coin.
And this character-focused decision-making even influenced the werewolves themselves, giving them a practical look instead of creating them with CGI.
The problem I have with CGI, I believe Hollywood is overdoing CGI at the time, in that when you see a horror film or any film with a tremendous amount of CGI, instead of being involved in the story, you're wowed by the effects. Rather than saying, oh my gosh, I'm scared, you're saying, wow, that looks great. And it takes you out of the story and away from the character. Truly what you should be doing is feeling for the character, knowing what he's going through, and putting yourself into the movie. And with CGI, it's hard to do that.
Now, I don't have a problem with CGI as a concept. I even think it works better than practical in many situations. But whenever you use any sort of tool, whether it be practical effects or CGI, there should be some intention, some desired effect you're trying to achieve, something you're specifically planning for and maximizing. With Dog Soldiers in particular, they didn't simply make the werewolves look interesting, they structured the film around their design, not showing them too much or too little, instead capturing the parts that left them identifiable but creepy, giving them an uncanny amalgamation of human and wolf that in all the years since I first saw the film has never left my mind.
Not entirely wolf, nor all human, but something in between.
Like damn, those legs go on for days.
Stilt extends from the normal ankle point down.
Even if they were uncomfortable.
Your foot is locked in a pointed position. You can't move your ankle, you can't wiggle your toes. It's very, very painful, and cramps start setting in quite quickly.
And the film's use of practical effects had some practical effects that I had never considered before. You see, when using CGI, you often don't know what certain CG elements will look like until they're finished. With practical effects though, the actors can physically see what they're interacting with, allowing them to visualize their scenes more accurately and effectively.
We had a great moment when we first brought the werewolves on. The movie had been shooting for a few weeks before most of the werewolf stuff was here. And Kevin came out and said he wanted to look at the werewolf. He was shooting the scene inside the set, we was outside. And we showed him the animatronic and it all, and he went, oh wow, you know, that's really given me a boost. And he went back inside, knowing what he was supposed to be scared of. You can't do that with CG, you know. You can't say, oh well, over there's going to be a big tyrannosaur in a minute, you know. Well, not in a minute, in about 10 months' time, you know. But be scared of it.
Because as cool as the werewolves are, and they are very cool, the most memorable moments come from the soldiers. Not only in how they interact with the werewolves, but with each other. And they don't just make you yell, they make you laugh too. Thanks for watching.